we're a little bit late because the makeup and all that stuff, takes time in the theater, and so we really had to work on that, especially mine because I usually need a lot of makeup. Glad to see you all here. Those of you who were there with us last week, we dealt with the issue of with some wonderful members of our congregation talking about the process of composing and music and how one takes a text and create. Oswaldo wrote a wonderful tone poem, a 13-part tone poem, which I recommend to all of you. It's almost psychedelic, as one critic said in the New York Times. It's called "Falling Out of Time." You can get it on Spotify, or you can actually buy it, and then maybe that's it. But Spotify, yeah, as one person said at the Grammys, I don't know if you listen, they have 4 million people listen to the thing, and the songwriter got it $3. So that's one of the big issues today with the sharing of music. Our guests tonight are also part of the TBZ family, and we're very glad that they're here. First is Judith Epstein-Fisher. Her professional name is Judy Braha, and I'll give you a short introduction. She's a marvelous actor and a marvelous director, and more importantly, she is a person who is teaching directing to others. She's the head of the directing program at the Boston University School of Fine Arts, and I've had the pleasure of seeing so much of Judy's work over the last 20 odd years. They have been odd years for the last 20 years, and I've seen such a variety of theater with remarkable experience. I must say, remarkable experiences, each one of them. I've also seen her in a wonderful play where she acted. It was at the Calderwood, wasn't it? The Wit. Terrific. I mean, just phenomenal. So I'm glad that she's with us, and Judy and I go back a while. I won't say how far back because we're both teenagers, so it's not really good to say. And Jesse Garlick is a member of our extended family. Of course, many of you know his mom Lauren and his dad Jonathan, and we're glad that you're here. Now, you're here basically as spectators to a discussion between a director and an actor. And and it'll be recorded. There'll be no questions and answers. You're basically going to be looking into what are the processes that an actor and a director go through in order to create a wonderful piece of art. And it's different than a painter and different than a musician. This is totally, you can't do acting, it seems, in isolation. A painter can be in a studio, locked away from the world. A writer can certainly be up in his or her attic for months at a time. And however, when you talk about theater, you talk about the great art of collaboration. And I think that's really what we want to talk about tonight. I am not in any way an expert in theater, except that I enjoy it. And I must say, over the years, I've come to appreciate so much what a director does, how a director really makes it or breaks it. And I've come to appreciate the subtleties that directors bring to a theater piece. So I'm going to ask Judy to start off by saying, what made you want to become a director? A nice Jewish girl, you could have become a brain surgeon today. Who knows?
Oh yeah, that would have been made my family very happy.
Right. So what brought you to this?
Well, I didn't become a director until I had been an actor for quite some time. I didn't start directing till I was almost 30, but I started acting when I was 13. And I loved acting. I loved diving into worlds that weren't my own. I loved being able to feel my feelings in all their bigness, which was very difficult for my father. So he was grateful that I found the theater because I didn't spray my feelings all over everybody, all over our house all the time. I was very serious about being an actor through middle school and high school, and I went to Carnegie Mellon University as an acting major,
Right.
and After I graduated, I did some acting. I became a TM teacher. I did a lot of things. And then I was in a theater company in downtown Boston that some of you might remember, called the New Ehrlich Theater. It was one of the first theaters in the South End. And it was in the South End before there were any restaurants there. And it was dangerous to park your car there. So um, I was very feisty in that theater company and didn't like some of the directors that they were hiring. And they said, okay, well, why don't you do it? And so I directed a play without ever having directed one when I was, I think, 28 or 29 years old. And I loved it. I loved it better than acting, 1,000 times better than acting, because there was something very big about being able to think about the vision of a play, how you want to communicate that to an audience, and what you really care about in terms of what they take away with them. And that felt really wonderful to me. And that first play was actually very successful. And so I kept directing plays after that for many, many years. And now I'm the head of the MFA directing program at Boston University for 25 years. And it's been a crazy, wonderful journey. And that's where I met Jesse Garlick.
Right, but also as you didn't have a director who taught you how to direct, you did it on your own.
I had worked with many, many directors, some of whom I really did love working with. And as many things happen in the arts, you kind of imitation is the highest form of flattery. And I really loved certain ways that people had worked with me. And so I started trying to emulate those. And then I developed my own ways. And then I started teaching those ways and teaching acting and training actors to work in the way that I wanted to work. So it was kind of an interesting journey. I was self-taught for a long, long time.
Yeah. Well, we're going to actually have an experience tonight of this process. So, Jesse, you're an actor. No, my son, the actor, as your father probably says very often.
And my mother.
And your mother, my son, the actor. No, how
And
did
my
you
sister.
get into?
Well,
and
no,
your sister is
she
here
doesn't
too,
say
I
that.
think.
She doesn't say son, at least.
Shira, right? So, what brought you into this world of acting? And you've been doing it quite a while now, and you've done a lot of regional theaters, a little bit off Broadway, and you're in New York now at Pace
That's correct,
University, which is in a directing and acting program, or is it just an acting program?
So I'm getting my MFA in theater studies. So I'm mainly doing acting, but also some directing, some devising, commedia, theater history. We touch on it all.
Good,
And
good.
that's the
So,
Actor Studio Drama School at Pace.
oh, I see. The actor studio, the famous actor studio.
That's the one.
Oh, wow. That's Lee Strasberg.
Alan Burston was our introduced us into the school on day one. So
Alan
we
Burston,
knew we
yeah.
were in good hands.
Very good hands. So, what brought you to being an actor? What was it about it that attracted you?
Well, I come from a very performative family, as I think most of you know. My father and my mother and my sister were all, we love performing for each other and we love performing for other people. And, my mother has a background in theater, which she brought to the table. My dad has a background in improv and rap. So I grew up in a particularly performative household, and my grandmother, who loved Stephen Sondheim. We would always spend hours in her apartment just listening to Stephen Sondheim records. And I think back now actually to the very first Broadway musical that I was tricked by my dad and my grandmother. They told me I was going to the Natural History Museum because I was a big fan of dinosaurs, when in fact they were taking me to see a production of Kiss Me Kate. And by the time I realized what was going on, it was too late, and I had already fallen in love with theater. But I didn't realize it was a job I could do until I got to high school, and an amazing theater director in high school named Jason Slavik, who he's the head of the company that I'm now an artistic associate and the education director for, called Liars and Believers. And he cast me as Cyrano de Bergerac my junior year of high school. And
That's very nice.
yeah, I did that show and I said, you know what, this is what I want to do. I think this is the only thing that I can do with my life. And I went to BU to study acting, where I met Judy. And she was an incredible teacher and sort of laid all the groundwork and the foundation for my professional career, which has been incredibly fruitful. As you were saying, Moshe, I've traveled across America. I'll be traveling to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with my company, fingers crossed, in the next couple of months. And it's been an amazing journey. And it's the world of acting has now taken me onto directing. I've directed several shows at Newton South and Solomon Schechter, and I'm currently in the process of directing a show for the Boston Theater Marathon, and directing a show that's going on at Temple Israel, which is done. We're doing it with non-actors, sharing their COVID experience. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. In Kiss Me Kate, there's a great song called Brush Up My Shakespeare. Is it Brush Up Your Shakespeare or My Shakespeare? I forget.
I think it's Brush Up Your Shakespeare.
Your Shakespeare, right. So I'm going to, before we get into the process a little more, we talked earlier in planning this, and I was wondering, what is the role still of the classical theater? Why is Shakespeare continuing to be sort of I don't want to say a fallback, but a standard that many actors have to experience, that many directors like to direct? Is that still, or is that considered Eurocentric now, and basically no one pays attention to it? So just a word or two about the great bard.
Judy, I mean, you're teaching it in the schools right now.
I know, right?
We are, but it's a big conversation right now. Definitely, there's a real movement to restructure curriculum and really bring many more voices into the picture, and that's happening all over the country, all over the world. Many voices representing many different cultures, races, points of view, and Shakespeare has kind of always been the standard bearer, but I think now usually classes start to mix Shakespeare and Suzanne Laurie Parks and many other playwrights of color in order to kind of use the wonderful techniques that actors can use with Shakespeare and learn through doing Shakespeare, and apply it to many other sorts of texts.
It's like, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's like many wonderful jazz musicians have classical backgrounds.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they bring the technique, if you will, into the music from their own, if you will, cultural background. Yeah, that's really interesting. So,
exactly. Jesse, I don't know what your point of view is.
Well, Jesse, I saw in Hamlet about 2 years ago, was it now?
Two or three. Honestly, 2 or 3 years. Right. Feels like it's been 17
Hamlet,
years.
Did you enjoy doing Shakespeare, Jesse? What does it give you? What does it give you?
I love it. It's some of my favorite text to work with. It's a container that is big enough for all of my emotional life. I think it's language that's crafted to be lived at the height of our humanity, and I think that's why it connects to so many people across so many generations and so many different ethnicities and backgrounds. But that said, the experience of me playing Hamlet as a Jewish white man is going to be very different for somebody who is black in America. And in order to, speak to their experience more fully, I do think that we have to have different barometers, and I think the inclusion of August Wilson on that level of a Shakespeare, because I think he certainly belongs at that level, I think can only be a good thing. I think about Adrian Kennedy and Lynn Nottage and so many of these people who have built up the American theater to a place where now it rivals in many ways the English theater. I think we need to make those voices heard as much and even more than the world that previously existed before COVID.
But we have to admit that the basics of theater and goes back a long way, obviously, to the Greeks. It's still about family, friends, enemies, love, breakups. I mean, the human nature may not have changed. Whatever culture you're in, there are still issues of love and hate and vengeance. And so, in a sense, Shakespeare provides you with a good palette for all of that. And I'm sure many, all good plays. So, I'm going to give the baton now to Judy, and Judy and Jesse have prepared something that will show you the process, hopefully, of how a director and an actor interact. So, Judy.
Sure. I'm wondering if people might be able to hide themselves so we're not looking at everybody all at once. We can just look at Jesse
Yes,
and
so
I
go to
can.
speaker view. Speaker view. Okay, much
There
better.
we go.
That's good.
There we go. So, um, Jesse, just wondering a couple things. One is, um, uh, should should we do the audition pieces first?
Okay.
Yeah, we might as well.
Okay, all right. So one thing we wanted to share with you is, it's a very weird thing how actors get work. We call them in, we give them a character description, we ask them to do a couple of monologues in order to see if we have um, some kind of a simpatico with them, and if they kind of um feel like the right person for the role that we're looking for. And so a lot of times when actors audition, we ask them to bring two contrasting pieces. And with those two contrasting pieces, we sometimes mess around with them in the room because in a short 5 to 10 minute spot, we have to kind of figure out, can this actor hear me? Can he be flexible in the way that I need him to be? And what would it be like to work in the room together with him? Because once you start working with an actor in a rehearsal process, you're working together basically 8 hours a day for 6 days, 5 or 6 days a week. So I know this is not Jesse's favorite, but I just wanted to to bring you into that process a little bit more. So I'm going to hide myself, and I'm going to ask Jesse to tell us what he's going to do and do his two contrasting pieces, which is what usually people ask actors to bring to an audition.
Great. So I'm going to be doing two contrasting monologues. Normally, for a lot of sort of general call auditions, they'll have you do two very quick monologues, about a minute to 90 seconds. And if it's real general call, they'll probably want like a classic monologue from Shakespeare, Marlowe, anything sort of before like 1850. And then they'll want a contemporary monologue to contrast with that. So for my contemporary monologue, I'm doing a piece from Suburbia by Eric Bogosian. He's an amazing, amazing playwright. And then I'll also be doing a monologue from Henry IV, Part 1, the character of Prince Hal, which is written by William Shakespeare. It used to scare me that I didn't know what was coming in my life. I always used to think, what if I make a wrong move, But what if there's not a right move? I mean, look at us. We all dress the same. We all talk the same. We all watch the same TV. No one's really different, even if they think they're different. And that's what makes me free, because I can do anything if I don't really care what the result is. I could knock my teeth out with a hammer. So what? I could piss in the street. I could strip naked and fart in the wind. No, nobody really cares what the result is. And that's what makes me free. So screw it. I'm getting naked. And this is Prince Hal. I know you all. and will a while uphold the unyoked humor of your idleness. Yet herein will I imitate the sun that doth permit the base contagious clouds to smother up his beauty from the world, that when he please himself to be himself being wanted, he shall be more wondered at, by breaking through the foul and ugly mists of vapors that did but seem to strangle him. If all the year were playing holiday, to sport would be as tedious as to work, but when they seldom come, they wished for come, and nothing pleaseth but rare accident. So when this loose behavior I throw off and pay the debt I never promised, by so much better than my word I am. By so much shall I falsify men's hopes, and like a bright metal on a sullen ground, my reformation, glittering o'er my fault, shall show more goodly, and attract more eyes than that which hath no foil to set it off. I'll so offend to make offense a skill, redeeming time when men think least I will.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I'm going to do what I would do in the audition. Jesse, let's look at that first piece again.
Cool.
I have a little bit different thought about Jeff, that character in Suburbia. He is terrified to be free. He is terrified to go to New York. He is terrified to do anything that steps him away from the 7-Eleven that he hangs out in front of. And so he is in this speech, in a way, protesting too much, as they say in Shakespeare. And so I think he is losing his girlfriend to somebody who's more successful than him. He's in a pickle. He's in a bad state. So I'd love for you to try it again and just have some fun with the idea that he is just lying through his teeth because he doesn't want to look bad, and he doesn't want to be a failure, and he doesn't want to be pinned down as the one who's the most screwed up in the whole neighborhood. So he's going to try and prove this in the best way possible to this girl BB who never says boo to him and is all screwed up herself. Okay, so let's give it a try.
All right. It used to scare me that I didn't know what was coming in my life. You know, I always used to think, what if I make a wrong move, you know? But what if there's not a right move? I mean, look at us. We all dress the same. We all talk the same. We all watch the same TV. No one's really different, even if they think they're different. And that's what makes me free, because I can do anything if I don't really care what the result is. I could knock all my teeth out with a hammer. So what? I could piss in the street. I could strip naked and fart in the wind. Nobody really cares what the result is, even if they think they care. And screw it. I'm getting naked.
Okay. All right. Good. So would you give this guy a job?
Not the character I just played, but me as Jesse.
Right.
I don't know if anybody would give that guy a job.
I don't think you want us to vote, right? We're not going to vote.
No, I don't want you to vote.
Okay, we're not going to vote.
But that, to me, that's a little closer to the character as I see them. And everybody interprets characters all different ways, sees them through different lenses. So it's fun for me to see can this actor hear me and give it a try, no matter what, and he can. You see,
So
very good at that.
Good. Let me ask you a question. Since he's giving you a little monologue, was a few minutes, you know the play. You may not know the play yet, right? Jesse, you may or may not have read the whole play.
May not have. I mean, my job as an actor is, I would say, you have to read the play.
Yes.
So before you do even an excerpt, you read the play. But you've done a lot
Yes.
more work in your choosing the play, Judy, and you've created in your own mind what you think the characters are, and
Yeah.
how they should be presented. So
Well,
is he have to get to where you are,
no, he
or
doesn't
you
have
it
to.
looks that way? Okay.
Like I said earlier, I just need to see, can this guy hear me? Can he hear me and can he change?
Uh-huh.
And those two things are very helpful in determining, can we work in a room together 8 hours a day, 5 days a week?
Wow. And you can probably pick that up with just 2 or 3 times with the person.
Yes. Well, you have to get very good at that, because I'm going to see, so imagine that we're seeing 20 guys for this role. They're all doing two pieces, and I have 10 minutes to work with each of them.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm going to call back 3 of them. So I have to take that group of 20 guys and reduce it down to 3 guys who I really think can work well with me and are really great for the part.
Okay. How much does physical stature have to do with it in your
Um,
mind? Have you seen the person, what they should look like?
I am always open to being surprised. For an actor to walk into the room and really surprise me as a person I never pictured in the role, but wow, they are so amazing, and I really think they can handle it well, and I want to take a risk and go that way.
Okay.
Does that make
So
sense?
it makes sense. I think it's great to be open to surprises. For me, that's how I think life should be. If you're not open to surprises, I think you live a rather dull life. So it's really good. So okay, so let's say Jesse got the part. Let's
Yeah.
say you decide you call him in, and when does he get to meet like the other people?
Oh, well,
And how does that
probably.
work? How do you work on bringing an ensemble together?
Well,
And
that's the other.
you can take me off the screen now if you want. I just want to see the two of them rather than me.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, when you're casting a play, you're putting together a family, really, which is one of the things I love about directing plays, because you're always making new families who are organized around the play that they're doing. So uh, I'm excited about putting that family together. So let's say I really loved Jesse's audition and I needed to cast, and I'm auditioning him not for Suburbia, but for this play that we're going to take a look at now, The Exonerated, by Jessica Blank and Eric Jensen. A very different kind of a play. And I'm looking for 6 actors to play the 6 exonerees in the play. I need to find people who are as different from one another as possible, who fulfill the givens of the playwright for each character, and who I think would be a bang up team, work really, really well together, and really collaborate well with me. Sure, yes, with me, but also with each other. So there are a lot of things that we're seeking in any audition situation. Oops, you're muted.
You're on mute, Moshe.
You're muted, Moshe.
You have to be both a mother and a father to this family in a way. Right.
Okay.
Okay. And maybe you want to show your do the exonerated now. Or you want to do the slideshow now. What would you like?
Um,
Do the
let's do the
exonerated.
exonerated.
Okay. Explain that to our folks. What is it
Okay.
about?
Okay. I when you're working in the beginning of a rehearsal process with an actor, um, they come in having thought about the part and read the play many times, and like Jesse said, having done their homework. Um, Moshe, I'm just uh, there we go. Um, and so then when you come into rehearsal for the first time and you're kind of working on the scene for the first time with an actor, it's a real chance for them to bring what they think is going on, and then for you to really say, okay, let's try it. Let's try to play around with it more, so it begins to come to life a bit more for this place in the play that it occurs. Specificity is everything in the theater. When you go to see a good piece of theater, you're watching some very hard work on the stage or screen, and you're really watching in a way, the end of a process where people have kind of dissected a puzzle and put it back together to make it live fully, to make this thing live fully up on its feet. And that's what actors do so well. And so what we'd like to do is, I gave Jesse a piece from a play he has not been in, but a play that I have directed, The Exonerated. And The Exonerated is made from interviews with people who really lived these experiences. And their names weren't changed. These are the real people and their real words. So that makes it, to me, double important to kind of honor the legacy of these people and their trials, I guess. These are all people who were wrongfully convicted and put on death row, and eventually, after a very long process, exonerated and set free. So I asked Jesse to take a look at a piece for the character Gary, who is kind of a bit of a hippie farmer guy who is accused of killing both his parents, wrongfully accused. So we're just going to work on it a little bit for you. Whenever you're ready, Jesse. Let me get rid of myself here.
I took a polygraph test around midnight. They wouldn't let me sleep, wouldn't let me lie down, and the polygraph examiner said he cannot pass me because of flat lines due to fatigue. Well, duh, it's midnight. I've been under questioning now for 6 hours, and my parents had just been murdered. About 1 a.m., they got 3 or 4 photos of my parents with their heads pulled back, and you could look down their throat, and the detectives yelling at me, "How could you do this? How could you kill this woman, the person who gave birth to you?" And this is how the interrogation went. I was in such a vulnerable and suggestible state from finding my parents and not knowing what happened. I was emotionally distraught. I was physically exhausted. I was confused. I had 15 cups of coffee. I was spaced out. And the police used that. They said they had all the evidence. They didn't even need my confession. They said they had bloody fingerprints, the weapon, everything. I was brainwashed, man. They told me, "We can't lie to you or we'd lose our jobs." They seemed very sincere, too, very believable. They started making me think I had a blackout and I'd actually done it. I said, "Look, if I killed my parents, I want to know about it." So I said, okay, if I could construct the situation in my mind, I finally volunteered to give them what they called a vision statement, a hypothetical account of what I would have done if I had killed my parents, to try and jog my memory. Well, I guess I would have gotten up that morning, and my mom would have been out in the trailer. And then I would have gotten dressed, and I would have had to have a knife in my pocket or something. I guess I would have gone over to the trailer she was in and then walked in. I would have had to reach out towards my mom. I never would have hurt her. They used that vision statement for a confession.
Okay, good, Jesse. Let's see, let me bring myself back. Great. So let's go back to the beginning and let's think about who you're talking to and why you're saying this to us. I'd like to play around with the idea that these are all the people who do not believe in wrongful conviction, who think everyone's in jail, deserves to be there, and they don't get it. So this is part of proving to them that there is such thing as a wrongfully incarcerated person, let alone a person on death row. And I would love for you to, a much more purposeful need to get to the listener, okay? And then the other thing I'd like you to play around with is the fact that talking about it brings him back there, makes him go back there. And this was like the worst night of his life. one of the worst nights of his life, where making this error, giving this vision statement, had him put on death row for many years. And it was all a trick. It was all a trick. And the injustice of that trick really needs to come through in this piece. Okay. So and the fact that he loved his mother, that he would never do this. He loved his parents. I think the thing that the piece captures really well is like the delirium of the situation that he had been. So let's not go quickly through those, 15 cups of coffee. That's a terrible situation. Mm-hmm. So you're in a way stepping into it for us in order to prove to us that you were taken advantage of and wrongfully convicted. Okay, so let's take it back from the beginning.
I took a polygraph test around midnight. They wouldn't let me sleep, wouldn't let me lie down. And the polygraph examiner said he cannot pass me because of flat lines due to fatigue. Well, duh, it's midnight. I've been under questioning now for 6 hours and my parents had just been murdered. About 1 a.m., they got 3 or 4 photos of my parents with their heads pulled back. You could look down their throat and the detectives yelling at me, how could you do this? How could you kill this woman, the person who gave birth to you?
Okay, I'm just going to stop you there. So, yeah, good. I want you to need an answer back from us more, okay? We really need to believe you and stop thinking that that you're lying or telling this for any other reason other than you were not guilty and they made you be guilty. Okay.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
Does your chair have a back?
It does.
Yeah. Could you start standing, please, and maybe raise up your camera a tiny bit? Mm-hmm. And I'd love for you to get in your legs a little bit and really think about the physical cost that this guy is experiencing in order to tell the story. It's not an easy story to tell. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. You can work your way back into the chair whenever you want, but I'd like you to start standing. Okay?
Okay. I took a polygraph test around midnight. They wouldn't let me sleep, wouldn't let me lie down, and the polygraph examiner said he cannot pass me because of flat lines due to fatigue. Well, duh, it's midnight. I've been under questioning now for 6 hours, and my parents had just been murdered. At about 1 a.m., they got 3 or 4 photos of my parents with their heads pulled back. You could look down their throat, and the detectives yelling at me, how could you do this? How could you kill this woman, the person who gave birth to you? And this is how the interrogation went. I was in such a vulnerable and suggestible state from finding my parents and not knowing what happened. I was confused. I was emotionally distraught. I was physically exhausted. I had 15 cups of coffee. I was spaced out, and the police used that. They said they had all the evidence, that they didn't even need my confession. And they said they had bloody fingerprints, the weapon, everything. I was brainwashed, man. They told me we can't lie to you. We'd lose our jobs. And they seemed very sincere, very believable. They started making me think I had a blackout, and I actually done it. I said, look, if I killed my parents, I want to know about it. So I said, okay, if I could construct the situation in my mind, I finally volunteered to give what they called a vision statement, a hypothetical account of what I would have done if I had killed my parents, to try and jog my memory.
The worst thing you ever did.
Well, I guess I would have gotten up that morning and my mom would have been out in the trailer, and then I would have gotten dressed, and I would have had to have a knife in my pocket or something. I guess I would have gone over to the trailer she was in and walked in, and I would have had to have reached out to my mom. I never would have heard her. They used that vision statement for a confession.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we would keep going like this. We would work on each little piece of it and keep putting more building blocks. Leah, that's a great suggestion, understanding how long he's been in jail when he's telling this. So we would build all of the things we needed to build in order to flesh out the story in all its specificity. Jesse, how did that feel to you? What felt different?
Yeah, I felt more of the cost that time. But if obviously, you have to sort of build up with these things. So if Judy and I kept working, you sort of layer in more of the sensory of, how long have you been in jail exactly, like Leah was saying, and how. What's the feeling of the space you're in, and who are the faces specifically, the people you're talking to? Is this the face of maybe my friend who didn't believe me? These are all things that steadily get built in rehearsal, and then it's the actor's job to really build in, for me at least, the personal. Where's the meeting point between me as Jesse and me as Gary, and where do I bring my lived experience as Jesse to this character? It's very taxing, to bring my lived experience sometimes to some of these roles, which are very, as you can read from this kind of play, very dark material. But in order to bring the truth of these stories to the fore for the audience, and to really have them see it, it's my job.
Yeah. Do we want to give him a little hand?
I think so. Wonderful, absolutely phenomenal. And I noticed this is what people don't see, obviously, it's behind the scenes. But what I think it articulates so beautifully for me is that all theater or all performance is telling a story, and telling a story that is convincing, that expresses who that character really is, and that hopefully this story is getting through. I
Yeah,
think that's what you're saying. How do you get that story through, and
right.
that it's not just going to be bounce back, rather than be absorbed. And I must say, Jesse, your second after your that second recitation was truly moving. I must say it was very, very
Thank you.
moving. Unfortunately, there was a terrible joke about a guy who kills his. The definition of chutzpah. Okay, fellow kills his mother and father, then throws himself on the mercy of the court by saying, "But I'm an orphan." That's chutzpah. Okay, sorry. So let me just move on a little bit. You work mostly with students, and you've also worked with professionals, quote unquote. Judy, right? You've
Yeah.
and I've been always, stunned by how good and what you get out of these students. I'm just like, it's how long does it take to take a piece that you want to present? What kind of rehearsals does it take? Does it depend on each show, or do you have a certain schedule that you like to stick to?
Well, I mean, at BU, we have a certain schedule that we work Tuesday through Friday, 7 to 11 in the evening, and Saturdays 10 to 6. And we usually do that for 4 or 5 weeks,
Wow.
then go through a tech process, and then open the show. So it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot of time, but it's not as much time as a professional production rehearses,
Right.
which is much more like 8 hours a day, 6 to 8 hours a day for 5 to 6 days a week.
Wow, that's a lot of time. So
Yeah.
I just a few words about how all of this COVID has affected the world of theater. I think we have to talk about that. There have been quite a number of performances now online. Some, I mean, you may have been seeing some of them, and it's I've been looking quite a bit at them, and very amazed by how uh, effective they still can be. It's certainly not the proscenium arch, and it's not that, but there's something of an intimacy that is sort of created by just seeing a close up of a face telling you a story. What's your reaction been to with this last year? I know it's been beautiful theater at BU has been closed for a year.
Yeah. You go, Jesse.
Well, it's been hard. I won't lie. You know, I go to the theater. The main reason that I go is to feel that connection with my scene partners and my director and my audience, and we've definitely been missing that over the course of this last year. But with that said, this is not theater's first pandemic. This is not the first plague that theater has had to go through, and it will certainly not be the last. And
I believe Shakespeare went through one. I believe Shakespeare went through one as well.
Yep, that's true. And you know, we've been adapting. We've been using this technology. My theater company, Liars and Believers. We've just finished the run of our Zoom show, which utilized shadow puppetry and regular puppetry and mask work in order to tell distinct stories from Russian folklore. So it's opened up some new gateways, and it's allowed people from many different walks of life to come see these shows that might otherwise not. You know, we had people coming to see that production that were from LA, from Denver, from Florida. You know, you can have all of these audience members from all over the world coming to see these shows, and it's certainly something we couldn't do before. And I'd be surprised if it leaves the theater. I think now that people in this realm know the way that they can connect using this sort of medium, I'd be surprised if Zoom is not an integral part of theater moving forward. I hope it's not the only part, but I would be surprised if it goes away completely.
Judy, how do you? Have you seen anything good lately?
I've seen a few good things, yeah, but I've also seen a lot of bad things. The theater does not really thrive in the way it usually does in this format. It has to be conceived in a bit different way. But I agree with Jesse. There have been some really successful shows. The State versus Natasha. Has anybody seen that, from Arlequin Players? And they also did a beautiful Cherry Orchard with the Baryshnikov Center, and there have been some really amazing pieces, but also lots of pieces that just simply don't belong on Zoom. They need to happen live and in person.
Right.
Our whole profession is pretty much been mostly out of work, so we're very sad about that, and we're really hoping that in the fall, little by little, things can begin to come back in person, which is what the wonderfulness of where the wonderfulness of theater happens. But I also agree with Jesse that it's amazing to watch a piece and see people from all over the world are watching it with you, and I really hope that aspect of it can somehow hold on when the in-person productions begin to come back into theaters.
Right. I noticed it was before the COVID for a while. Opera was being now made available in movie theaters around the world, so you could go out and see an opera, which you may not ever get to New York to see, the Metropolitan, whatever. So I wonder if theater will perhaps, put plays on that can be seen throughout the world.
Well, the National Theatre in London does that all the time. You can go to the Coolidge Corner Cinema and see the whole National Theatre series, which is an amazing thing.
And they now have their own streaming service as well. That if you want to pay $13.99 a month, you can actually sign up for the National Theatre streaming service and watch all the plays in their catalog on whatever streaming device you want.
That is good to know. It's good to know. Let me we're not coming to a conclusion but this could go on for a very long time. But I wanted you mentioned in our conversation that one of the things that you believe theater is to do is to activate people. That theater is not there to be taken and be passive, meaning an audience is never passive if the audience is reacting and hopefully taking something with them when they leave the theater to activate their lives. So how do you see the link that you've connected over the years between civic activism, social activism, and your life in theater. Judy.
Hmm. I'm a very staunch proponent of the arts for social justice, and really believe I don't think any of the plays I've done in the last I'd say 15 years have been just for the hell of it. I'm really always looking for plays that are speaking directly to our time, and that will somehow reach inside of audience members and help them see through another set of eyes, through another lens. And I really hope um, to continue doing that. And the other flip side of that is that I've participated in a prison education program for almost a decade, teaching at the men's prison in Norfolk and the women's prison in Framingham, um, a multidisciplinary arts class, and now we're teaching in the Suffolk County Jail. And that also is, to me, a really important part of what I do, because I'm really um, hoping to help and to walk into very inhumane facilities and work with people to link them to their creativity, their imagination, and their own humanity. Oh, somebody has a bird on their shoulder. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Right.
The wonder of
And
Zoom.
I think
See
I think
something
it's
new every day.
I don't think it's a stuffed bird. I think it's a real one.
No, it's real.
It's a stuffed? No, it's real. Okay.
Anyway, I should also say that as a student, when Jesse was a student at BU, he came into MCI Norfolk with me and my teaching partners, and spent some time with us there. And I don't know, Jesse, if you want to speak to that at all, but
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredibly powerful experience and has really sort of inspired me to begin to work on, I was a student, it sort of set for me in my mind, the kind of work that I want to be doing, because I found it incredibly fulfilling to see, these people that were in this maximum security facility who didn't really, before they were saying they didn't really have an understanding of themselves. And through the exercises that we did and the opportunities that they were offered to share their experiences, to hear them speak afterwards of saying, oh, I really conceptualize this now. I feel like I have a greater hold of myself, and I feel like I've grown, and I feel like I know how to move forward. It gave me a sense of catharsis. And to see that kind of hope in a place that, coming in felt fairly hopeless, just speaks to the power of theater, and what it's capable of doing.
Right. And this opens up a tremendous topic about what is the purpose of incarceration? Is it to give people an opportunity to really move forward, or is it basically to keep holding them back from re-entering? But you gave me a good segue. Jesse, what have you learned about yourself over the last number of years being an actor and playing other people?
Well, I've learned that I mean, it sort of depends on the role, I guess. With each role is a new learning experience. But I think that the main takeaway that I've been reflecting on a lot over the last year is that the connection of being with somebody in person and sharing a genuine moment, where I get an opportunity to share something about myself, whether it's me as Jesse telling them that thing, or me as a character sharing a truth about Jesse with that person. For me, and to feel like I'm really heard, I think that's one of the most unbeatable sensations for me, and that's really why I act. But I also recognize that this sensation is something that I want to inspire in others, and it's why I view my teaching, which I do and have been doing throughout the pandemic. I view it as just as valuable as my acting. I get just as much out of seeing my students have those kinds of catharsis of saying, oh, I shared this thing about myself and you listened and you didn't reject me. this is an incredible tool, and this is something that I can continue to fall back on when I'm feeling low. I can have this as a means of bringing myself up. Yeah, those moments for me are on par, if not better, than anything I've experienced as an actor on stage.
And Judy, have you thought of returning to some more acting?
Um, I prefer directing.
Okay.
I love to act every once in a while. I spent so many years as an actor, and I like being a director.
Okay, let me put you on the spot. What's your when you were acting? What role did you like best? And then I'll
Um,
ask you, what play have you enjoyed directing most?
I like that role in Wit that you saw.
Wonderful.
Um, and I also really loved playing, a long time ago, I played Annie Sullivan in The Miracle Worker, and I loved
Oh,
that.
tough role, because Helen Keller was beating you up at all the time, right through the show. I heard. That's
Right, right.
that's right. And directing, I know they're all your children, and you don't want to make a favorite one. But is there one that really changed your approach or gave you some enlightenment that you didn't have before?
Well, the play that you saw called Our Class, about the history of Poland in the 20th century, that was, I would say, the most challenging play I ever directed, and it taught me a lot about my own directing process and how to deepen it, and how to move forward unafraid of complicated things, because it was an incredibly complicated thing. It had dialects and stage fighting and dance and uh, fires and and it went and had a sweep of time across the whole 20th century. So
Right.
I would say that's probably one of my favorites.
Right. It was also one of mine. And what people should just realize that a director's job is to fill that space too, and the way people move. And this was a large, nice space next to the Huntington Theater, and there were so many. How many people were in that play? Remember?
10.
10. But they filled the space. They
Yeah.
filled the space so nicely, and that's something that I admire so much in what a director does is basically is given a space and says, okay, fill it, not only with words but with movement and a sense of it. So, anything else before we sign off? Here's what I want you to do. Since we're not having Q&A, which I think is okay, if you have a question, send it to me or send it to Judith or to Jesse. But if you send them to me or a comment, I'll be glad to forward it to them. And if they feel like answering you, they will. If not, you can blame me. That's all. But they're not answering you. So let's put it together a little bit now at the end that we have a moment or two. Uh, if you had to do any directing of a play that you have written, would you do the directing? I'm just curious. Would you, if you wrote a
Um,
play, would you want to direct it, or do you think that's not good for the author to direct a play?
Yeah, I've worked on a lot of new works, and I think it's good to have a division of labor there for sure.
Yeah,
Let the
I
writer be the writer, and let the director help the writer interpret their work.
Right.
you never know what because as somebody who has written plays, I feel like the people that have touched my plays and directed my plays have discovered things that I didn't even know were there as the
Yeah,
writers. You're not afforded that opportunity if you're just jumping straight to your vision, straight to I'm going to direct this / star in it or whatever it is.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
this is what you see a lot of. People get to a place they want to act, direct, maybe even produce. They want to, control it in every way. And I think you're right. Letting it out of your hands into someone
I,
else's
I want to
can
do all
make
of
it less.
those as well, just
You
not at the
do.
same time.
Good,
right,
good,
right.
good. So I thank you both. This is, I really. You want to show your slideshow now, please?
Yeah,
Explain it and
Garrett
show
has
it.
my slideshow, so she can show it, but I would love to hand it over to her.
Okay. So
Okay.
Ferret, this is explain what we're going to see just for a moment, Judy.
Oh, it's just a slideshow of some of the work that I've done, and it doesn't have all of it by any means, but just a smattering of different things, including posters and photos from uh, over the years, shall we say.
So Tiferet, are we ready for this now?
Yep,
Yeah.
ready to go.
Okay, let's go. And then we'll come back and we'll say goodbye. So let's look at the slideshow right now.
That was nostalgic for me.
Some very good plays in there that I was lucky enough to see.
You're muted, Reb Moshe.
I think it's very beautiful. I love the music behind it as well. And I'm sure you have many students who have gone on to become professional actors and directors. And I hope they keep in touch, and I'm sure they do. And I'm sure you'll have many more in the years to come. And Jesse, you too will have many more opportunities to do all of those things that you said you wanted to do. And but it's again, I think what I admire most about all of this, what I admire about theater, what I love about theater, movies as well, but movies are not the same necessarily because of all the technical stuff, you know. But the fact is that you do become a family, and you do have to do it as an ensemble, and more importantly, you got to be able to feel it deep within yourself in order to let it go out to other people. And I think that's always a transformative catharsis is the right word. And I think that's what we try to do also as rabbis, is to give people within a service a sense of catharsis that we're doing, and we're reenacting, if you will, reenacting the past in order to get the kind of catharsis we need for the future. So thank you all. Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Jesse. Thank all of you for being here. And as I say, this will be available online and our YouTube channel. And as I say, if you have comments or questions, just send it to me, Reb Moshe at tbzbrookline.org. And Richard, how is you doing? Is Richard doing better?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay,
for
good.
asking.
Good. He had a bit of an incident, as we would call it, or maybe an accident. That's a better word than an incident. So I hope Richard is doing well. And thank you all for being here. And kisses to all.
I thank you all for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, Moshe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you,
Bye now.
Jesse. Thank you, Reb Moshe and Reb Tiferet.
Night.
Good night.